When you're ready to try and put figures or animals into your scenes, you've got basically three choices. You can either put them in the distance, or have them middle distance, or have them in the foreground. Now you might not feel ready to have them in the foreground yet, but let's start with a suggestion of one or two figures in the distance. So I've prepared a little pencil sketch, and I'm going to just try and put a little figure under this tree in the distance, just to show how you could adapt the stick to perhaps a little bent stick for a seated figure who's sitting, there's his knees, under the tree like that, and with his head. And really at that distance you're not going to see very much other than just the suggestion of somebody sitting there with a shadow, quite a long shadow coming from there. And we could even suggest a little dog standing next to him with the blob shadow highlight technique that we tried earlier. Again, we don't need to know what kind of dog it is, but if you've got the approximate height and you get the tail wagging, then we've got about a retriever size perhaps standing next to his master. So really what you do is you let the imagination run a little. And maybe on the pathway here, we'll try the stick figure, a standing figure approaching, and therefore on that scale you would just try and place the figure, and if you think it looks too big or too small, you just change the height, and we say, right, the figure standing there would be about that height, so let's just go half, quarter and an eighth, and there's the head. Just bring a little bit of, remember and bulk it out. If you don't make it broad enough, it will look like stick figures, so give them a bit of beef. And there's the legs. Again, we don't want too much detail. And the most important thing, of course, always is that shadow, which immediately anchors the figure to the ground. And shall we give this one a dog as well? Why not? Again, just pop in a little body there. And the hint of legs, the tail, that can just go into the same shadow. So you see how just the suggestion, we don't need to know much about detail, but it's really just to keep them well in the background, and don't forget to put the shadows in. Now this time we're going to bring the figure nearer, and this is the middle distance, and you can use the same approach, just use the stick to begin with. I'll put him a bit nearer the tree. That's his top half, and he's lying down under the tree, feet up. So that stick just gives you the shape, and the scale, you can see already the idea of the scale. So he's a middle distance figure now, and his head will be just leaning forward as he sits under the tree. We might have to just rub out a little bit of shadow there, that's better. And we'll have his body, that's the bulk of the body. He's against the light, and he's got a hat on this time. And we still don't really need to worry too much about any detail, because he's in front of the tree, he's in shadow, and this shadow will continue out just here. And you can continue to just doodle away with him and make him a little bit more detailed if you feel you need to. No face or anything, he's totally against the light. And quite important to attach him to the tree by having that stronger shadow. There we are, which is coming in. We'll try the dog again. So let's just pop in the basic head shape, and there's his back end, and there's the tail. So he's not quite a blob, he's a little bit more of a sophisticated blob this time, because we're being a little bit more detailed. Against the light, so we can make him quite dark, and like that, and let him melt into that shadow that was there already. The tail. It's very tempting, I know, to start putting in details, but at this stage we really just want to keep it absolutely light. So that figure is middle distance, and he's of equal importance to the scene around him. Your third choice, when you're feeling a bit more confident, is to come in much closer and do the foreground figure, which will be a bit more detailed. We'll just put the stick in again. That's your confidence booster. And that shows you the line that he's sitting. He's sitting on a slope and his head's just leaning forward. And we'll have his shoulder against the tree, which will be rather nice because that tree is dark, and we can shadow that up a bit and put the line in here for his arm. And then we'll have his knee coming up and down. And the head's leaning forward quite a bit. He's definitely nodded off to sleep now. And we'll keep his hat on. So that helps you to get out of doing too much face detail because we're really not ready for portraits yet. So there's his hat. Shadow this side. His face will be in shadow, and that back shoulder will be in shadow against the light too. And we'll just bring his arm up, resting on his knee, like that. And his leg will be coming up here, and his two knees together, and this leg coming out a little bit further. So that gives approximate position. Now he looks as if he's floating at the moment, and again that's because we need to really build up on that important shadow. The whole area here really needs to be in dark shadow, and this leg's completely in shadow, and these shadows come right across. Let's just block in some strong dark coming across here, and this will lead off down into the path. There's a closer version of the dog now. Again, we can sort of tidy up that head in a minute. And he's still looking round. And maybe somebody's approaching. The body of the dog. I'll just taper off here. Back leg. You can lose a lot in the shadows, which is helpful. So you'll have the dog's shadow coming down here, saves you worrying about feet. Just a hint of that leg here. Now let's just darken this knee a little, strengthen it up where it needs. And obviously you can see this is only a little, maybe 10 by 8 sketch, but if you're going to produce a painting of this size, you know you're going to be committed to a bit more detail. So there we have it, the same scene 3 times. The first time the figure is in the distance and incidental to the scene. The second time the figure is mid-distance and of equal importance to the scene. And the third time the figure is in the foreground and the scene becomes incidental. Now, if we pull together some of the points that we've covered already and go back to the sheep, and this time I'm going to work from a photograph, which is quite legitimate. Sometimes I work from the sketchbook and sometimes I work from the photos. And going back to the sheep, last time they were in pastel, and this time they're going to be in watercolour. That's the blob sheep, okay? It's going to have a little black head. We'll put that in later. And if I take the same roughly sort of blob shape again, there's my standing sheep, and you'll have some dark legs, so I don't need to worry about the legs just yet. They can go in later. I'm mainly just covering the area that I'm going to paint around. It's negative painting, which means I'm painting sheep, but I'm actually not painting the sheep at all. I'm painting around the sheep. I'll just make a little touch of green, which will be the surrounding field colour. So let's just take that right round here. In fact, even the head wouldn't matter if you're going to have some black faced sheep. That wouldn't matter quite so much. There's the ground. What I might do is actually add a little touch more yellow on there just to make it a little stronger on the ground. Okay, we'll let that dry for a sec. Now we can move into a bit of the shadow colour, which has to be a darker tone than the sheep itself. And just come over to here and put a little bit of tonal value. We'll have the shadow going this way, and that's where the head is. So I'll just intensify the colour a little there, and a bit of dark underneath. And then on this one, we'll have the head about here. And I'll just dilute that colour slightly. And that is the bulk of the body, just down below. There's the legs going in, which are dark, so you see they didn't need to be worried about in the beginning when the wash went in. And there's the all-important shadow coming in, and that helps to give them a little bit more strength. The green around the two sheep has actually helped to project the white of the sheep's coat. And we'll do the same thing again with the oils, and just make a negative colour of green behind. Just a light green is needed, that's all. But it's the light green that will help to make it stand out. And that's quite thinly painted. I'm doing it with a fairly thin solution of paint. And you can alter the colour of the background. As you get used to this negative painting, you become aware of areas of the body that might need the background to be slightly darker. For instance, the hen colour will be very light here, so I'll make the green slightly darker on this side. And of course, with the beauty with oils is that I can go lighter or darker as I need. So I'll make that a little bit darker here. And then I'll come up a little bit lighter around the other side. So completely paint right round the whole shape. I'll just leave out a little bit of space there. This particular hen is a little red Isa brown hen, and her palest colour is raw sienna with just a touch of raw sienna with white, and then we can work slightly darker, making it a little bit pinker this time, adding a touch of red to the first colour to make it slightly more golden. I'm making it much darker around the side now, around here and here, so it's starting to show up against the green. It's very dark along here. I'll go back to the paler colour on the neck. And I quite like, even in an oil sketch such as this, I quite like to have a little touch of white showing through, which adds a bit of sparkle to it. Now the dark I'm going to make a little bit stronger now by adding dark brown to the orange of the hen. And I'll just strengthen that up here and here. And we've got the shadow on the ground as well. Let's make her, I've just chopped off her feet, so we'll cut her feet off with long grass. There we go. And finally, cadmium red, I didn't mention earlier, but it's a nice extra colour that you can have if you're doing hens, for that little splash of colour like that, just to give it a little bit of life. I hope you've enjoyed all these exercises that I've shown you, and that they've given you the confidence to get outside and have a go yourself. After all, that's what it's all about.
Now available to buy. Try these techniques at home whenever you wish. The extended DVD of today's workshop is now available from the Painting and Drawing channel. For further information and to order your copy, go to www.paintingdrawingchannel.com.